Right, we're here today for sentencing. You entered a plea to count 1, paragraph A. The court found that there was sufficient evidence to find you guilty. I'm assuming there is no application for deferred adjudication. Is that correct?
Well, if I believe we should have submitted one, Judge, because really the agreement would be state is opposing deferred, but recommending probation, and that's basically the impasse, if there is one.
All right. Did you want a PSI, or are you waiving PSI and I will hear argument?
There was a PSI done.
Oh, let me see.
I reviewed it yesterday.
I don't have a copy of the PSI. Just one moment. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Have both parties reviewed the PSI?
The state has, with no objections, Judge.
And I did as well, Your Honor. No objections.
Right, and you all are correct. I remember now receiving and reviewing this PSI because that's where we got the amount that's due. So, are there any witnesses from the?
When the state remains silent on a defendant's application for deferred adjudication, it often gives the judge more discretion. However, silence doesn't mean the judge will be easy. It just means the prosecutor isn't actively fighting the request.
The state?
And none from the state, Judge. And in full candor, I believe the state was silent on the defendant's application.
That is true. Any witnesses?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
All right, then the court will hear your argument for deferred.
Well, Your Honor, after reviewing the PS, I may not be targeting an elderly individual in the same sense as, maybe cases where somebody works at a nursing home and takes somebody out of somebody's purse or something to that effect. There were other victims as well, and they weren't elderly individuals. But going on, Judge, she did pay restitution as well, start paying to the detective on behalf of the Thomases, which shows that she knew what she did was wrong. She's trying to make it better. And in the statement from the Thomases, they said they believed, that she deserved a second chance, maybe depending on her criminal history. That's what Mr. Thomas had said. Of course, from the PSI, it's evident that she has no criminal history other than these charges. So this isn't a repeat compulsive sort of problem, Your Honor. I know what someone of your stature, someone in charge of a district court may be looking at these sorts of offenses and thinking, is this a compulsive pattern where somebody is constantly targeting elderly individuals and committing crimes of moral turpitude? But it's never happened before. I believe firmly, after representing Ms. Lozano and talking to her, coaching her through this case, it will never happen again. She knows it's very serious and she will never want to be in this position again. From the victim impact statement from Ms. Finland, I didn't really understand if she's trying to get her nurse's license, being an LVN, RN, taking that route. So I believe, Your Honor, that she does deserve deferred. As you know, there are a lot of consequences on deferred. It's not an easy road. She can be adjudicated guilty. She can become a convicted felon and have crimes of moral turpitude on her record. She can face a jail sanction for up to 180 days. She can face TDC, more importantly. So because of the consequences, Your Honor, and because deferred also.
The lawyer is highlighting the jail sanction risk of deferred adjudication to reassure the judge. It's a tactical way of saying that if she messes up, the court still has the power to throw the book at her later.
Gives the court room to punish her if anything does happen again, or if she's not compliant with probation. I'd ask the court to place my client on deferred adjudication and give her a second chance to make this right, and perhaps in the future avoid becoming a convicted felon.
All right, is there anything you wish to say?
No. The day went, even though I know I committed a crime, I mean, it still is something that weighs on me every day. Never been in trouble. I don't do things like this. And so that's kind of where I didn't remember. It wasn't that I didn't remember.
her rent, but stated once more that she did not remember. This officer then pressed her recollection and encouraged her to be honest, and she reported that she did use the card multiple times. She reported that she attempted to pay her rent first, but was adamant that all transactions were unsuccessful. She was asked about her financial situation at that time, and she stated that she was struggling financially and had to pay for rent, car payment, insurance, and was not managing her money correctly. The defendant was asked about the purchase with the Randolph Brooks card at Amazon and Cash App, and stated that she doesn't remember the transactions, but they must have happened. So I'm trying to figure out, how are you unable to remember that you made transactions on these cards? Because your statement in here says that you only remember attempting to pay your rent and it didn't go through, and that you're adamant that all transactions were unsuccessful.
Yeah, so I remember clearly that it was for my rent. I don't, when she had mentioned about the other charges, I was not like, this is wrong, and I threw it away because I thought
All right,
that was
so you're saying it was wrong, but then after that, there's an Amazon purchase and there's Cash App purchase. So what do you mean you realized it was wrong, but according to this, you continued to use it?
like I said, I definitely do not recall using it on Amazon. I can't remember this moment what I even would have used it for in that moment. I do 100% remember using it for my rent, and I just felt super awful and made me feel so bad because I was like, oh my God, like, what is that person going through?
The defendant is trying to paint a picture of financial desperation to justify her actions. While judges understand struggle, they usually have little patience for using someone else's identity to maintain a lifestyle, like keeping a car you can't afford.
That, my issue, I could have figured out a different way. And that's how I felt in that moment.
And why did you stop paying? Because it appears that, who knows, I'm not with the police department or with the DA's office, but it appears that you were making payments and then you ended up ghosting that person and stopping making payments. Why?
So I was making the payments, and then I unfortunately had to get a new phone because I was in financial issues. So I had to get a new number. And when I had called the court and rent at the same time, I needed to be responsible and get rid of that car.
And why didn't you get rid of that car?
I think it was just my not wanting to see, like, just not wanting my family to realize that I wasn't making it. I think that was just kind of the biggest thing.
And do you still have that car? So when did you get rid of that car?
I believe it was like a month after this incident.
Mhm.
I gave it back to the bank that I had it with.
So I'm trying to make a decision on whether or not to give you deferred. What I can tell you is people on probation in this court work with minors. Do you understand that?
Yes.
So this is me trying to figure out whether or not to give you deferred. And this is my question for you. With your stealing of those credit cards and using them, what do you think the person whose cards they belong to, what do you think they had to do to straighten all of that out?
Go to their banks, make phone calls. I know it's definitely a long process. I've had the same situation happen to me, and it's a very, very difficult process. And something.
So no, I mean, what process? I'm
having to call your bank and verify those charges and have them go through the fraud process, and then having to get those cards reinstated back to you, which can take 7 to 10 business days for them to come in the mail.
And then what do you think happens if they have money in their bank account and they have bills that are coming monthly out of that account? I don't know if you're internalizing everything. And if you're telling me that in the past you've had this happen to you before,
yes.
I don't know if you should get deferred adjudication counsel.
Well, Judge, she has taken a plea. I can tell you without violating any lawyer-client confidentiality, she's never been the type of client to lack accountability and tell me this is just all bogus.
The judge is debunking the victimless crime myth by explaining how fraud costs are passed to other customers. She's signaling that the defendant's actions have a societal cost, which justifies a stricter sentence.
It never happened this way. They're lying. There's none of that. We discussed this case, and she came to a decision very quickly. And I know she realizes the impact of her actions. I will say with respect to credit card fraud, every bank is a little bit different. It happened to me a few months ago, or maybe about 5 weeks ago. Have USAA within about 5 days, it was all cleared up. The people.
I mean, I understand that, but somebody is paying for it, right? Even if the bank says, hey, we realize that this was fraud and it's not you, and we're going to put that money back in your account. They're not just putting that money back in the account and saying, oh, well, that money that they're putting back in the account, trust me, they're passing it along to their customers some kind of way, even though they probably have insurance for fraud. So it's not just, oh, we're not hurting anybody by doing this.
No, and I agree. I mean, I definitely, I had got fired for this case, and I took out my 401k, and that's kind of what I've been using.
So here's my question. And I always say taking out 401k, usually people do that a lot. Why didn't you just take money out of your 401k when you were struggling with car payments and everything instead of stealing?
At that time, I was transferring jobs, so I didn't have I had only been at my job for 6 months, and then I had transitioned to a different job, so I didn't have a 401k, like anything available.
But now that you're unemployed, you have a 401k.
Because I had been with my company for the last 2 years before this case.
All right, anything else?
Again, Your Honor, she has, I believe, from the PSI.
From having license. That goes for cosmetology, whatever business that requires you to have a license, this is going to pop up. You understand? All right, the court will sentence you to 8 years, deferred adjudication. There's to be regular reporting by Zoom or in person. There's to be regular random UAs. Proof of employment within 45 days. There's to be no employment as a home health care provider or with minors. Field visits 1 time per month for 6 months. There's a remaining restitution to Lauren Thomas.
8 years of deferred adjudication is a long time. The judge's final advice about not building happiness on misery is a standard stern lecture meant to stick with the defendant throughout her lengthy probation period.
Of $875. There's to be restitution to Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union in the amount of $36.74.
And Judge,
Yes.
I don't mean to interrupt, but for restitution, after reading Ms. Finland's statement,
Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union in the amount of $36.74. There's to be no contact with Deborah Finland and Lauren Thomas. The MRT course. 150 hours of community service restitution. You'll have to do those hours at an approved restitution center. Probation will let you know which places are approved. If there is something that you're interested in, let them know, and we'll see if there's an approved place for that. Usually it's the San Antonio Food Bank, but if there's a shelter and you want to do it at the shelter, you can do it at the shelter. Document entitled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Rights to Appeal with your attorney. Did you understand it and sign it?
Yes.
Because it's a plea bargain agreement, because I followed your plea bargain agreement, and because you waived your right to appeal, you do not have the court's permission to appeal. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, we can go off the record. Here's the thing, and this is what my grandmother would always tell me, my mom tells me, and this just goes through our family. And the number one thing is you cannot build your happiness off somebody else's misery. So even if you think it's a shortcut for you, you need to ask yourself, am I making somebody else's life miserable? And if the answer is yes, don't do it. Now, you're on deferred adjudication. If you successfully complete it, you won't have a conviction on your record. However, this is always going to be on your record. And anytime you try to apply for a license, it's best that you be truthful with them up front, because you know what's going to end up happening. If you say no, they're going to you may end up getting the job, but then when that background